whence the soundless roar doth come, when drowseth matter's dreary drum, on shores of bliss booming breaks, all earth, all heaven, all body shakes. The bumblebee now hums along, baby doth softly sing his song. From Krishna's flute the call is sweet, 'tis time the watery God to meet. Cords bound to flesh are broken all, vibrations burst and meteors fall. The hustling heart, the boasting breath, no more shall cause the yogi's death. The God of fire with fervor sings, Om, Om, his joyous harp now rings. Prana, God with power sounds, the wondrous bells, the soul resounds. All nature lies in darkness soft, the star divine is seen aloft. Subconscious dreams have gone to bed, 'tis then that one doth hear Om's tread. Oh, upward climb the living tree, hark to the cosmic symphony. From Om, the soundless roar from Om, the call for light or dark to roam. From Om, the music of the spheres, from Om, the mist of nature's tears, all things of earth and heaven declare, Om, Om, resounding everywhere. From Om, the music of the spheres, from Om, the mist of nature's tears, all things of earth and heaven declare, Om, Om, resounding everywhere.
Good morning, all. Just getting up now. Do you ever have one of those dreams in which, you're standing before a group of people in your pajamas, kind of thing? But I am. So there's nothing to fear anymore. It's happened. It's okay. You all still like me? It's all right. So if I'm concerned about what people think about me while giving Sunday service, do you call that alter ego? Sorry. So welcome to Ananda. Ananda means inner joy. And is there anybody here for the first time ever? Welcome. Yay. Welcome. Yay. So what we do here is we're based on classic age-old teachings, Yogananda specifically, and techniques of meditation and how to bring those meditative attitudes into all of our lives. And we wouldn't be here if it weren't working and we weren't happy about it. So this teaching, with the esoteric title of Did God Create the Universe or Become It? I don't know if you woke up this morning wondering that, but But since I had time ahead of time to reflect on this, I did what every person nowadays would do. I asked Siri what she thought about it. Siri, for those of you that are not Apple-centric, is the little voice that comes on your iPhone that you talk to and ask questions about. When we first moved here a year and a half ago, I didn't know that smartphones had GPS capabilities. We didn't know where we were, how to get anywhere. And it was just like the heavens opening up to realize that I could ask Siri how to take me there. And she would say, okay, turn right here, now turn left. It was like, this is great. We didn't know where anything was in relation to anything else, because we weren't looking at maps. So just now we're beginning to piece, we're like little kids, that kind of say, Mommy, I learned how to put my socks on, So we're kind of like realizing, oh, this is how it relates to over there. I can actually get there on my own without having to do that. Anyway, my point is that before I asked Siri whether God created the universe or became it, for fun, I did what I like to do from time to time and just said, I love you, Siri, just to see what she says, And she said, that's nice. Now can we get back to work? Okay. So I said, Siri, did God become the universe or create it? She said, just a minute. I found several references on the web as to did God create the universe. So that was interesting. So I'm driving, so I'm not looking in detail. But actually, the first couple of things I saw were from Stephen Hawking that were an article that said God wasn't needed to create the universe. I thought, now that's interesting. I didn't actually read that article and follow up on it, but that does sort of represent a little bit of a dichotomy between kind of thinking about it and figuring it out from the outside as opposed to kind of feeling it from the inside. And we do find ourselves kind of in that position where it's not really an either or. It's not like religion and spirituality versus logical science. It's kind of seemed like that just because religious forms, as we've known them, don't really seem as applicable nowadays to us as they used to. We're kind of in a time of transition between old traditional ways of looking at things that had their purpose. And they actually served to move us along, in our spiritual evolution more towards the light. But it's kind of like the things that were really appropriate to help you grow up as a kid. When you become a teenager, those all kind of go out the window and you're, seeking new things to help you move along to the next step. And it's kind of where we are now, is sort of the old forms have just been shaken up, and we're in a place now of trying to sort for what are the new things that are going to help me move on from here. And so a lot of people find themselves, rejecting the old traditional forms of, I did. I was raised Catholic and loved it actually, but it could only answer, at least at the time, questions up to a certain point for me. And then the more cosmic questions I had, even though those answers are there, they weren't able to be explained to me very easily. So I ended up, as many people do, just kind of, striking out and seeking whatever answers I could find. And a lot of people find themselves here for that kind of reason. So fortunately, for me anyway, just personal story, coming around to read Autobiography of a Yogi, it was just so cool. Because he was, in modern language, talking to me about all those cosmic questions that I wondered, but not in a way that negated anything. In fact, for me, it kind of made sense of everything I was taught in the Catholic tradition, but it put a bigger context around it. Oh, that's what they meant. That's what it was all about. And so, specifically about our topic today, we can get into the cosmic questions of why did God create the world? I don't know, really. But the more important question is, what are we going to do about it now? How do we find happiness now? How do we find that inner joy, which Ananda means, that we're seeking all the time? And we often seek it outwardly through our technology, ooh, a new fill in the blank. I want that because that will make me happy because then I'll be able to do all those things that And it kind of makes us a little restless. And I'm just going to do a fun little thing here, show and tell. So the lovely Manisha Home will hand me that jar of water there. So this is God. Thank you. Behind, yeah. This is God in his, its, no duality, pristine form, okay? And behind door number 2 is, just for the fun of it, the game of Maya. Now, Maya is a Sanskrit word that means the measurer, literally. It means, instead of thinking that everything is one unified field, little tip of that, Stephen Hawking, that somehow things are separate, that we're different from each other. You know, that my happiness is different from yours, and that somehow I'm separated from my source, that kind of thing. Okay, and now I'm going to ask the lovely Manisha Holm to hand me that cup that's on the piano. Thank you very much. Maya. Ooh. Now, you know, it's just a game. It's a show. It's kind of like, let's make this interesting. What would happen if, God thought, you know, what would happen if I separated myself and pretended that part of me wasn't aware of me? Okay, that's called duality. And what happens when things go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth? It's vibration. So in that Om song that we had, vibration, you know, it really describes how this all came about. God just having a thought, like we do from time to time, you know, wouldn't that be cool if? It's a thought we have. And then all of a sudden we start, you know, coming up with ideas, we put out energy, still all mental at this point. And then we start actually doing stuff. So really that's how this all came about in a sort of cosmic sense. First, God thought, well, this would be fun to try. Let's sort of, you know, have some thoughts about how things were. And thoughts immediately created vibration. And that turned into energy, and that turned into form. You have God beyond creation. You have the thought, wouldn't this be cool? That's the causal world that's kind of causing things to happen. And then that turns into plans. That's the energy world, the astral world. And then it ends up in form. You know, we know that. We do that every day. That's the material world. Here we are. Then we find ourselves so interested in the material world that we kind of forget where it all came from. And then we worry about it, naturally, because if you forget your source of infinite joy and find yourself here worrying about how to pay the bills, you know, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? We kind of forget that the God who created all this has a plan. I think it's in the Native American tradition that if you get a snake bite from a rattlesnake, that the antidote to that snake bite is contained within the tail of the snake. Now, you know, I don't know that I can tell you how exactly to grab that rattlesnake and chew the tail and suck the venom out of there, but the point is, often plants that have a certain, you know, poisonous or not helpful to us humans effect, their antidote will be somewhere nearby. And so situations in our lives that we're challenged by, you know, the answer is within that situation or nearby somehow. And the trick is, and this is what all of spirituality is about, this is what everything we teach here is about, is just remembering the source, remembering where it came from. And as we do that, as we practice that, we learn to trust that. And our hearts resonate with that. It's not a logical thing. It's like, oh yeah, I recognize that. Duh. You know, that makes sense. How did I forget that? So, you know, when we have agitated thoughts, it's kind of like, sort of muddies up the waters, swirls around a lot. And it's kind of like that a lot. Much more so in Silicon Valley where we came from. Portland, it's a little bit more relaxed. But, you know, it still kind of swirls around a lot. There's a lot of things to do and busyness to have and all that, and that's okay. I mean, we enjoy doing that. This is a time on the planet where things are more energetic. There's a lot of energy infusion going on, so we feel that. It's kind of like being on a wave that's just moving along. We can't just not act or not do anything. In fact, the Indian scriptures say you can't just not act. You're always doing something. So the question is, how can we act consciously, joyfully, but not lose our remembrance of God? And meditation is one of the main answers for that. Just classic meditation is just at least twice a day, formally, making it a point to just sit down, be still, let the swirling waters just kind of settle down a little bit. You know, and what we find over time, as we may find there, is that those busy thoughts, when we're not agitating them, they just kind of naturally settle down. And we just kind of remember, oh yeah, that's right, my pure origin, there it is, this is what it feels like. It's there already. And so whenever we take the time to just remember, so we do that in meditation a couple of times a day, ideally, but then what we find is that we can bring that remembrance to everything we do all throughout the day. And more, as often as we can remember to. You know, for a while in the Christian churches, there was a movement to try to get ministers just to mention God more often, you know. So the effort for us in our daily lives is just to remember God more often. I remember as a Catholic, you know, in the school with the nuns, one of them told me once that really we should remember God all the time, think of God all the time. And I, as a kid, first reaction was, no way, it's impossible. I can't, it's just physically impossible. You can't think of God all the time. But I just find myself more and more often kind of coming closer and closer to that, just because it feels so good, you know, just to include God in everything you're doing, because really that's who we are. That's where we came from. To create all this stuff, God didn't have anything outside of himself, itself, you know, ourselves, to make something with. It was just like it vibrated out of that eternal bliss. And God's nature is bliss. So the more that we can remember that that's where we came from, that we are in fact a vibration, a manifestation, an expression of God's bliss. And how does God want to express through us individually? Yogananda used to say that really this life is just like a movie, and it's just about as real as a movie is. Now to us it really, really seems real, because we're in it. We really like it too, and that makes the show go on. But the more that we can take time to just let things settle down a little bit, the more we remember who our director is, and the more we can just think to say, okay, God, here we are. This is an interesting chapter of the book. You know, how would you like the hero or heroine to act in this particular scene? What would be fun to do here? You know, what would the ideal outcome be of something like this? And, you know, what could I say or do in this situation? How could I behave with this person to help move things along to what might be a fun outcome? And if things end up in disaster, then it's just like, okay, well, that makes for a good novel. You know, I wonder how we're going to get out of this one. And we always do. But it's so much more fun the more we can think of God. An Ananda member, Haridas, came up with an acronym that's real fun. It's called SPIDOG. See, isn't that, I mean, already you have an image, SPIDOG. And it's SPIDOG, solve problems in the direction of God. SPIDOG, solve problems in the direction of God. So whenever we're stuck, you know, interpersonal situation, or work situation, or just the habit of worry or anxiety. I've been so interested lately, well, let me finish my sentence. Then, if we can remember SPIDOG, oh yeah, solve problems in the direction of God. Okay, how can I hold this situation, you know, in a more godlike context? Just suppose that this is not an accident, that this is not unfair, that there's actually a loving intent behind this circumstance that's actually designed to help me grow and learn the next thing that I need to learn, me specifically. You know, my lesson, not theirs, but this is for me. Their lesson may be completely different. But this is my karma, I drew it to me. So what can I learn from this? How can I act this scene really well? Now, what was I going to say? Oh, well, that's the danger of dancing around so much. So how are we doing here? Well, it's getting better. Okay, yeah. So just taking the time to meditate, we feel our connection, we feel the inner, as we said earlier on, vibration, when it creates us, it has two aspects. Any vibration creates sound, and it creates light. So you'll find reference to that a lot in spiritual literature. But it's practical also, because that's the way we kind of retrace our steps to that original source we came from. We get quiet enough in meditation, and what often happens is that, what sometimes can happen is that we can hear inner sounds. Those sounds of the chakras that Yogananda described in that song. And in doing so, it reminds us of our divine source in infinity. Sometimes we can perceive an inner light. When we concentrate here, Yogananda said that if we can just remember to focus our attention here at the spiritual eye more often, then that will help bring us to that point of remembrance. And as we described in our purification ceremony, if we can just offer up everything that's kind of pulling us down, offer it up into that light. I love our language, uplifted. I feel high. It just describes that energy flow. And it's just simply a matter of remembering where we want the energy to go. So to concentrate here as much as we can, to realize that everybody else is in the same boat that we are, all trying to do the same thing and get the same place, and to realize that everybody has their own challenges. There's a quote that my wife found once that was the one that's on your desk right now about battles.
Oh, be kind to everyone you meet because everyone is fighting a great battle. Is that the one you
That's
mean?
the one. Yeah, that's useful. Why are they being like that? And they shouldn't do that to me, kind of thing. Be kind to everyone you meet because everyone you meet is fighting a great battle, just like we are. It's that battle between God remembrance and, no, I think I'll just forget about that right now and get involved in this until it gets so painful that it's like, wait a minute, what was I thinking, So meditate twice a day if you can. We teach meditation classes here, classic techniques of God remembrance, just to help that settle down a little bit. And then, a lot of people may think that meditation takes you away from reality, but it's just the opposite. Meditation gets us back in touch with reality, our true natures, so that we can bring that into everything we do, to the busy lives that we have, to all the relationships that we have, and we can bring it in a higher dimension from a godlike point of view. It's nice to think sometimes that at the end of your life, looking back, will you be happy with all the decisions you made? Well, of course, we have pros, cons. But look at it from God's perspective. Does God have patience with us? Yeah. Does a loving parent have patience with their child? Do they expect them to be perfect? No, it's a learning process. That's why we're here. So just have patience with ourselves from a godly perspective in everything we do, and to feel God's love in all that we do. All right, blessings. And we have a Whispers reading.
Yes. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda. The title is Teach Me to Drown in Thy Light and Live. I come to thee with the song of my smiles. Whatever treasures have lain in the secrecy of my soul, I bring eagerly to thee. I bring thee all the honey from the hive of my heart. All that was ever mine is now thine alone. The sunlight of this world, shining upon my eager hopes and brief, fickle fulfillments, burned me repeatedly with dissatisfaction. Now I will quench my thirst forever in thy radiant waters. The taper of my aspiration toward happiness will burst aflame with thy coming into a conflagration of bliss. In thy vast, enchanting sea of light, I will swim joyfully forever. Teach me to drown in thee and live, rather than live in the mirage paradise of earthliness and die. We'll take just a moment of silence.